You're listening to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast, episode number 162.
Welcome to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. Business advice so easy, you'll feel like you're cheating. And now your host, Amy Porterfield.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to another episode of the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Amy Porterfield. And before we jump into today's episode, I want to make sure you had time to check out last week's episode, number 161. It was the episode where I interviewed my husband, Hobie. Now, let me tell you, this was a little bit nerve-wracking. I've never done anything like that before, and I wasn't really sure what Hobie was going to say, but I think it turned out pretty good. We talked about protecting your most sacred relationships as you grow your online business. Because let's be honest, as entrepreneurs, we can get a little crazy at times. Can I get an amen for that? I mean, during launches and stressful times and when the money's not coming in consistently, we can be stress cases. And I think that's normal. And I think growing an online business is dramatically different than working in a 9-to-5. So you have challenges you normally would never have if you were just going to a job. And so I thought it was important that Hobie and I talked about this because we've had our ups and downs and we really have found our groove in terms of being able to communicate with each other and support each other when things get a little bit crazy. So Hobie shared his experience with being married to an entrepreneur. I shared my experience with how I can support him better even when things are stressful. So a lot of good lessons there. And if you are in a relationship or you hope to have a wonderful relationship as you grow your online business, I highly recommend you check out that episode, number 161. Okay, so now moving on to today's episode, we are talking all things Facebook marketing. So almost 2 years ago, in June 2015, I wrote an article called The Ultimate Guide to Facebook Engagement. It was a huge hit, still one of the most visited blog posts on my site. Well, preparing for this episode, I went through the old post and I expected that all of the info would be completely outdated because we all know that Facebook rapidly changes. However, surprisingly, so much of what I included in that article was still relevant. So that's got to kind of ease your mind a little bit, right? So let me give you some examples. In the article, I mentioned that Facebook is focused on the fan experience. Mark Zuckerberg is all about the fan. So the fan, not the marketer. That is still incredibly true today. I also talked about engagement, and I said that the engagement equation is simple. Increase your engagement, the likes, the comments, the shares, the views, the clicks, and get rewarded. I said that the more often your fans engage with your post, the more often your post will be pushed out into the newsfeed. This is still true. And finally, in the article, I listed what was working on Facebook. So 2 years ago, I talked about getting personal and being human and taking people behind the scenes with your Facebook post. I said that you have to focus on the fans that are actually commenting and watching your videos and engaging with you, and you've got to start a conversation with them. I also talked about asking questions that are going to ignite a true conversation, questions you genuinely care about and you want to hear from your audience. All of that is still very true. But here's what's dramatically changed from just 2 years ago when I wrote that article. The change is in how we are posting our content on Facebook and how we are actually getting engagement. So this episode is going to examine the how. Here's what we'll cover: what's working right now on Facebook and what's not working. The number one thing you should stop doing on Facebook starting today. I think you're going to love this tip. And how to beat the Facebook algorithm and get seen and heard on Facebook. Ultimately, we will be exploring video because that's what's really changed since I wrote that article 2 years ago. There's a little bit of a mention of video in that article, but nothing like what I'm going to get into today. And this episode is not all about Facebook Live. Facebook Live is a good thing to talk about, but there's more you can do with video, and there's a way you can ease into it. So you're not having to go live on video from day one. I'm all about baby steps. And so I want to give you some ways to take some baby steps so that you start engaging on Facebook using video. So let's do it. Now, I'd be doing you a huge disservice if I only focused on a few cool tips and tricks to try on your Facebook page. Because if you don't understand how things are working on Facebook right now, you're going to cut off your creativity before it even begins to flow. So first, how things work. I've broken them down into 3 Facebook truths. The first truth was something I learned at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. Mike Stelzner did a keynote from stage, and he shared with us that Facebook is running out of places for your content in the newsfeed. Yeah, you heard me right. Now, 2 years ago, when I wrote that initial article, I actually quoted Facebook saying, there's more competition for what users see. So only the highest quality content is actually going to get through and get shown to those people. So that was 2 years ago. Now, just recently, Facebook said that they are running out of places to show your ads. So yeah, they were talking about ads. Now, don't worry. Facebook has a lot of other places they intend to show ads. So don't even think that your paid media is in danger. But they did say, look, we are running out of places to show your ads, specifically in the newsfeed. But if they're running out of places in the newsfeed for your ads, that also means they're running out of places in the newsfeed for your content, which could mean less reach and visibility for you, which ultimately could mean less leads in your email list. And then, of course, you know what that means, less sales. So the truth here is that it's getting more difficult to grow your business on Facebook. And I would venture to say across all popular social media sites, it's getting more difficult. I think Instagram is the next one we'll likely be talking about when we're talking about running out of space. So there's a high supply of content, low available inventory. But this episode is not at all about despair. It's about changing the way you interact with Facebook. So truth number 2, Facebook puts the user experience before their marketers. I mentioned this one already in the intro. It's nothing new. Facebook wants their users to see quality content, and they want content that is designed to bring people back. And they want their newsfeed free of spam. And during the most recent election here in the US, there was this huge focus on fake news stories, which Facebook is cracking down on as well. So they're cleaning up their newsfeed. They're making sure that it is a great experience for their users, which means when you are creating content, you want to keep this in mind. You want to make sure that whatever you're putting out there is a great experience for your audience. Now, truth number 3, this is a good one. If your next post gets a strong start, it's likely to be a big success. This is something that Mike Stelzner got into detail while he was doing his keynote, and I just ate it up. I loved everything about how he explained this. So first, I need to give him credit for this, but then I kind of broke it down in my own way as well. So how does a Facebook post get a strong start? It's all about the Facebook algorithm. Do some of you hate that word? I kind of hate the word. 1, I think it's hard to spell. And 2, it's just so confusing. And it's supposed to be confusing. We're not supposed to know everything about how the Facebook algorithm works, because obviously if we did, people would game it even more. But there is enough information or detail about that algorithm that you can use it to your advantage. So I thought it would be really valuable for me to break this down, because when Mike broke it down on stage, it made perfect sense to me. So number 1, you post a piece of content on your Facebook page. Number 2, the algorithm kicks in and scans the content and attempts to determine its substance. So is it a text, image, recorded video, live video? What is it? Now, what's important to know is that Facebook tweaks the algorithm to try to actually change human behavior. What that means is that at certain times, Facebook will give certain algorithmic preference to certain kinds of content. So for example, Recently, Facebook came out and said that longer videos will get preference in the newsfeed. They want people to stay on Facebook longer. So if you're making longer videos, Facebook likes that and they're paying attention to that. So if you can understand what some of these algorithmic preferences are, you can use them to your advantage as a marketer. That's why I'm taking a moment to explain this. So again, you post on your page, the algorithm kicks in to determine its substance. And then from there, Facebook will selectively show your content. You post your content, it's scanned, and then selectively shown to a few of your fans. Now, here's where things get good. Based on how your initial fans react to the content, the algorithm expands or doesn't expand. So if somebody clicks like or love, or if they click on a link, if they comment, if they share, that is telling Facebook, look, people are interested in this content. If your fans react, then the reach is expanded. It's no longer about scheduling things to show up at certain times. It's no longer based on time as much as it used to be. Instead, you post, your fans react, and if there's enough reaction, again, likes, clicks, comments, views, shares, whatever it might be, then Facebook will start to push that out even more. So a strong start is incredibly important. I think more so than it ever has been before. So how to make this actionable? I want you to start to think, okay, I'm going to post this, and what have I done in this post to get that surge of engagement, to get a lot of likes or clicks or comments? And am I encouraging that engagement? Now, Facebook doesn't like that you ask for likes. So you've got to get creative here and get more human here. Instead of thinking as a marketer, click like if you agree. We used to do that back in the day and it worked like gangbusters. Instead, you've got to approach this differently and think, what could I do in this post that would make people react? I recently saw, speaking of Social Media Examiner, I saw on their Instagram channel, I forget who said it, but the quote was, you have to give something that people can experience, not just watch. And because we're going to get into video even more in this episode, I want you to remember that. You want to post something that people can experience and not just watch. And I think when you do that, that's when you start to get the engagement. So although I knew about the algorithm before Mike explained it on stage, the big takeaway for me was that he mentioned this idea of that initial engagement or lack thereof. And if you have a really strong start, you will see that Facebook will reward you for that. And that's what we need to do differently. We need to think of, how do we get that strong start? Okay, so those are the 3 truths. Number 1, Facebook is running out of places for your content in their newsfeed. Number 2, Facebook puts the user experience before the marketers. And truth number 3, if your next post gets a strong start, it's likely to be a bigger success. So now that you understand how it all works, let's get into some of the seriously good tips and strategies for posting so that you can be seen and heard by your perfect audience on Facebook. I've got 5 new rules of Facebook marketing. Let's do it. Rule number 1, less posts, more quality. When I heard Mike say this from stage at Social Media Marketing World, I was like, bring it on. I love this. I love the idea of posting less, however, posting more quality. And in my world, more quality means that I've got to spend more time on some of those posts. So at the time that I'm recording this, we're actually not implementing everything I'm talking about. Usually I like to wait till I implement it and then I report back on my own experience. However, this is too important to wait. We're working on it right now. And in the freebie that I mentioned, I like the idea that I get to share a bunch of examples from other people's businesses and not just mine. Anytime I get the chance to highlight other people, it's always a good day. And so in the freebie, I found a lot of great examples of people posting less, but more quality. And that's what I'm showing you in the PDF, these quality posts. So when I tell you this, you might think, okay, well, what does that mean? More quality. Well, I want you to think in terms of getting the most mileage out of your content. And this will make it a whole lot easier for you. So start with a piece of original content that maybe lives on your blog. So you wrote a really great blog post. Now I want you to think of, okay, how can I use some of this content across all of my social channels? How can I create a Facebook Live out of this? How can I do a Facebook story or an Instagram story from this? What could I do on Snapchat with this? If you use Snapchat, I don't, but you might. So let's think about this original piece of content that we spent so long on researching, creating, and getting it just right. And let's take snippets of that and maybe dig deeper with a Facebook Live, or take a snippet of that and share it in a video on Instagram or whatever you might do. So a lot of what I'm teaching you here, you can use across social channels, but you don't have to always be creating new content. I know in my world, I likely don't get enough mileage out of the stuff I create. And every podcast episode takes me hours to create for you. So if I'm going to put in the time, I've kind of just come to the conclusion that it just takes me a lot of time to create this content. But if I'm going to put in the time and effort and agony of trying to get it right, then why not get some more mileage out of it? So let me give you an example. With this episode, I might get on video and create a short little video about maybe one of these rules. And I can put that on Facebook or Instagram or wherever I want to put it. I could also do some other cool animated videos, which I'm going to talk to you in a moment to ease you into video. And I could take out some of the best nuggets from this episode and put it in some animated videos on my Facebook page. And then, of course, I could jump in one of my groups and talk about one of these topics extensively because there's so many topics in one episode. So there's just a lot of ways to slice and dice the content you already have and use it across your channels. Now, how does this relate to new rule number 1, less posts, more quality? Well, what I'm no longer doing is I'm no longer posting quotes in a static image. I really have seen zero engagement from that stuff. I'm also posting less about what I'm doing, but then again, spending the time to maybe turn a static image into an animated image or video or whatever you call those. We'll get to that. So it takes me a little bit longer, but it lives on a whole lot longer. So I'm posting less content, but putting more effort into each post on my Facebook page. Now, for me, I have to say that I take this even one step further. I don't expect a lot of engagement on my Facebook page because that's not where I'm focusing right now. So that might sound a little crazy, right? And this is where things get a little bit weird because I don't want to steer you wrong. But I also know that you appreciate when I talk to you about how I approach things in my own business. So take this as you will, do what works best for you. But what we've decided is that we want to spend more time inside of our Facebook groups. I've got 3 Facebook groups, 4 right now because of B-School, but soon that one is going to be closing because it's finishing up. So I've got courses that convert, webinars that convert, and List Builders Lab. And what I want to do is spend more time in each of those groups, helping my students, encouraging them to keep moving forward. And these are the people who have invested in what I sell. And so they are the people that I'm going to spend more and more time with. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm abandoning my Facebook page and not getting any engagement there. Instead, my focus is on Facebook Lives on my Facebook page. So if you've never purchased one of my programs, you're not in any of my Facebook groups, I still want to make sure that you are supported. And so I now have an opportunity to connect with so many more people in my audience if they don't happen to be in one of my Facebook groups. So that's how I am using my Facebook page to post less, but more quality. Because let me tell you, a Facebook Live on my Facebook page, I can't do tons of those. I can't do many each week just because that's not my personality. So if you want to join me there, if you just go to facebook.com/Amy Porterfield, you'll see my past Facebook Lives if you missed it live, and you'll see when the next one is coming up. Okay, so less post, more quality. That's what you're definitely going to see from me on my Facebook page, and hopefully you're going to explore that as well. Now we're moving on to rule number 2. And that is focus more on growing your community, less on how many fans you have on your page. This one's a good one. And that's exactly what I mentioned earlier, just a minute ago, about me focusing on the communities that I've already created. I want to nurture those relationships more than I've ever done before. So it's all about right now, what's working. It's all about the Facebook group. Now, you all have heard me talk about Facebook groups a lot. Did you hear the episode where I talked about deleting thousands of people from a B-School Facebook group that I had because I didn't have the bandwidth to support it and I didn't want to not be there for them? I'll link to that episode in the show notes as well. But I love Facebook groups and I think you got to do them right. And so I've talked about Facebook groups in episode 97, episode number 146, and episode number 151. So I've given you a lot of tips, but I thought, well, what could I talk about that's new here for this rule of focusing more on growing your community, less on how many fans you have on your Facebook page? Well, one thing I could tell you is that I have noticed in some really great free Facebook communities that the leaders are doing a great job of connecting people in their groups. And the way that they're doing that is they're calling out certain people. I've seen this in 2 different groups just last week. So basically, if you have a free Facebook community around a certain topic and you are the leader or the community manager in that group, what you can do is when somebody asks a question and you are aware that there's someone else in the group that could answer it probably better than you actually give a shout out to that other person and say, hey, Jane, this is a great question. And so-and-so, let's say Jack, is an expert in this area. And I've seen him do great things related to your question. So Jack, would you mind jumping in here and giving a little insight to Jane? And so Jack and Jane are in your group and now you've connected them and you don't have to answer every question, which could be daunting as the leader. But also when people start connecting like that and helping each other, but you're fostering it, you're making it happen, you will be amazed how much more loyal that group becomes to your mission. It's just an incredible thing. I've seen it happen and I haven't done it a lot. However, Lindsay, my community manager, Lindsay and I talked about this a few weeks ago and she's starting to do it more and more. So I love that she saw it working as well. So now she's calling out other people. So I love that. And here's another thing, a tactical tip. This is brand new, hot off the press at the time of this recording. You can now link your Facebook group to your Facebook page. And this is cool. So when you go to somebody's Facebook page, if they have a free Facebook community, I actually wouldn't do this for any of your closed groups that are just for paid members. So I'm not doing this. However, if you have a free Facebook group, whether it's closed or open, what I want you to do is I want you to link that group from your page. Now, it's hard to explain on a podcast, so I'm showing you what it looks like in my show notes. So if you go to amyporterfield.com/162, we actually have an example in the show notes that you can see exactly how it works. And it's really good. And not many people know about it yet, so I highly recommend you try it out. So there's 2 little tips for your Facebook groups, but remember the rule is focus more on growing your community on Facebook, like finding that community on Facebook, less on how many fans you have. That's just such an unimportant number compared to the other things you can do on Facebook to grow your business, which leads me to number 3. So I was going to say one of the most important things you can do on Facebook is find your community and grow your community via Facebook groups. Now, one day Facebook groups might not be as valuable. Then we're going to switch it up. But right now it's working and I think you should take advantage of it. But the second thing that I think is more important to do on Facebook versus worry about how many fans you have is advertise more. Use Facebook advertising. Now, at Social Media Marketing World, I learned that only 6.7% of businesses on Facebook actually advertise. Is that crazy or what? 6.7% of businesses on Facebook advertise. That means a whole heck of a lot of people are not advertising their businesses. They have Facebook business pages, but they are not advertising. Now, you know, I talk about Facebook advertising a lot on the show. Some of my most current episodes, number 127, 135, and 148. If you just want to jot those down, you can look at them later. 127, 135, 148. We will link to all of those episodes in my show notes for this episode so you can get to them easily. And I'll put the titles next to them so you could decide if you want to listen. Most of those are with my sidekick, Rick Mulready, where we're talking about all things Facebook ads. But I thought, well, how could I make this actionable for you right now? If the new rule is to advertise more or start advertising, then how can I give you some value here? Well, if you're not advertising yet, or if you're just dabbling and you just know in your heart of hearts that you're not really in it yet, I want to give you 3 areas to focus on the most. So as you start to explore, as you start to get beyond the dabbling and really doing, 3 things to focus on. Number 1, become a student of Facebook ad targeting. Know your audience and then learn how to find out where they are spending time on Facebook. Or more importantly, learn how to retarget them. If you're already getting them to your website, you're already getting them to watch your Facebook Live videos. If you're already attracting them in other ways, learn how you can retarget. So number 1, become a student of targeting. Number 2, learn what it means to retarget, because I think that's the most powerful way to target with your Facebook ads, retargeting, which is something we're going to be talking about in next week's episode, number 163. Rick and I are going to talk about the Facebook Pixel and how to use it to retarget. All right. And then the third thing when it comes to Facebook advertising, where you should be focusing, is getting comfortable with the Power Editor. Now, I know that many of you just want to hire someone to do your ads. It's pricey. It is really expensive to do so. And a lot of times you really lose control of what is working and changing things fast enough so that you don't waste money, unless the person's really, really good, which means usually they're really, really expensive. This is not always, like, these are not hard and fast rules. I've just noticed it's hard to find someone who's really good at Facebook ads and they're not pricey because they deserve to be paid well. So I would love to see you first learn how to do Facebook ads, then consider hiring someone. I do not suggest you go into it blind and then hire somebody. Like, I can't even imagine if I never knew how to do Facebook ads and then I hired someone to do it for me. There's a few things in your business where you can get away with that, like programming, development, coding, all that. You don't need to know it to hire someone to do it. Facebook ads, I think you should know it. So my third area is getting comfortable with the Power Editor. Don't let it scare you. It is very intimidating at first. I want you to work inside of the Power Editor. This is where you set up your Facebook ads again and again. I want you to show up every single week. I want you to get in there. It is actually a very good use of your time. If you're incredibly busy and you think you have no time to run Facebook ads, you are leaving boatloads of money on the table. That I know for sure. I know for sure from my own experience and thousands of my students' experiences. So if you feel like you don't have time to learn Facebook ads, make time. Put something else on the back burner. Do a little less in one area of your business so that you can spend 3, 4, 5 hours a week inside of the Power Editor, setting up your Facebook ads, experimenting, learning targeting, learning how to retarget. To me, that could be some of the best use of your time. Again, we'll be talking about Facebook ads more next week, so hopefully you'll join me and Rick Mulready and dive into it. Okay, moving on to rule number 4. And this is a new rule, remember, so we're kind of changing how we're approaching Facebook. New rule number 4, more videos, more consistently. Now, my friends, I do not say this lightly because if you know me, you know I don't love doing more video. However, I'm actually not talking about direct to camera videos. Those are not the only videos you can do, the videos that I think are the most difficult. But first, let me give you a stat. There's a prediction that 80% of internet traffic will be video by 2019. This is from Cisco. So 80% of internet traffic will be video by 2019. That is really, really soon from the time I'm recording this. Crazy, right? Now, I'm still old school, I think. I think I was born old school because every single day I read articles. I don't necessarily watch tons of videos online. I like to read articles still, whether it be on Newsweek or Forbes or People magazine. I just like to read the articles. I sound like I'm talking about Playboy, huh? When the guys say they buy it for the articles, but really I'm reading articles. I'm just not reading Playboy. This is getting awkward. Let's move on. So I don't watch tons and tons of video to get all my information. Now I watch video as a marketer. I want to see what other people are doing, but I'm surprised by this stat and I actually believe it. I don't think I'm the norm. So because of that, well, let me back up. In the June 2015 article, I focused mainly on images. I talked a lot about creating your images using Canva, one of the tools I love to create great images. And that was really the main focus when I was talking about tips and tricks for Facebook engagement. I would never have that conversation with you today. So that's one of the drastic changes from just 2 years ago. Now it's all about video. But let me ease you into video because I know that you might not want to do a bunch of Facebook Lives. And I know that you might not even be using Facebook Stories just yet. So with that, let's talk about 3 types of easy video. And I've got to give a shout out to my friend Donna Mortz. She has Socially Sorted. That's the name of her business and website. And she is a hotshot when it comes to imagery. Recently, Donna's been going beyond just static imagery and talking a whole lot more about imagery as it relates to videos. And so I wanted to share with you 3 types of easy videos that Donna presented in her presentation. And I do believe that these 3 types of easy videos will ease you into videos before you're worried about doing 30-minute Facebook Lives on your Facebook page. I want you to do both, but let's ease you into it. So the first type of video she talks about is short video. And I'm going to give examples of all types of video in my free PDF. So don't worry, you're going to actually see it in action if you get my freebie. But the first video, short videos, basically you've seen these all over the web where I guess like the best example would be somebody cooking something. And you see these short little video clips of putting the flour in and the sugar in and pouring this and pouring that. And they're just really easy videos that you learn something new in like a minute or a little bit more. And she showed that you can create these with Animoto and Adobe Spark Video, 2 tools, Animoto, or you can use Adobe Spark Video. There's tons you can use, but she showed how to use these videos and they're a lot easier than I actually thought. So I wanted to give you those 2 tools. I'll link to them in the show notes. But what's great is that you can use images and music, but a lot of people will use just really short video clips and then put them all together. So you see people actually moving in the video. You could be a talking head in the video if you want, but you got to see the examples to really understand what I mean. And you'll start to think, oh, I could do that. Very doable. Now, the second type of video she calls animated graphics. I call these animated images. I don't know the correct word for them. I feel like they're fairly new that we all don't have the same language around them yet. But this is where you combine individual images to create the illusion of continuous motion, making it look like a mini movie. So instead of actually having video clips, you're just using static images. But the tools I'm going to suggest put it together in a way that looks like there's true movement in the video, which grabs attention. An animated graphic will get you so many more views than a static image any day of the week, like 99.9% of the time. And they're easy to make. So Ripple, R-I-P-L, and Adobe Spark are 2 tools that you can create these animated graphics with. And this is probably my favorite way. We've been doing this a lot with our podcast. So if you've ever seen on Facebook or Instagram, there's an animated image, and what's animated are the little broadcast lines that are moving up and down, which basically is me speaking. And then you hear me talk. So we'll take a little clip. You'll see me do it for this episode. We'll take a little clip of this episode, maybe something really smart that I said, hopefully, and we will actually pair it with this static image where the only thing moving are those little broadcast lines. I don't know what they're called. You know what I mean? So basically, that's the only thing moving. So it's an animated image or animated graphic in my mind. Anyway, they're easy to create and I highly recommend you check this out. So we're going to give you some tools to try it out. Full disclosure, the ones that I use, we just have them custom made by my designer, but I know that there's tools you can use to get them made as well. And then finally, Donna talked about GIFs, GIFs. And she said that there's some controversy around these. I don't know why. I'm like not in the know enough to know why there'd be controversy, but I see them everywhere and they work. So she has this tool called Giphy, Giphy, where you can use other people's GIFs or you could create them on your own. And I thought that this tool is really cool. So I thought I'm definitely going to include that. So full disclosure, I got these 3 ideas from Donna from Social Media Marketing World. She did a great job with the presentation and she is a dear friend of mine. So I wanted to give her a shout out. Now let's move into Facebook Live, because remember the new rule, number 4, more videos, more consistently. So I just gave you 3 easy ways to do video. And I would actually say, I want to see you post less static images on your Facebook page. And let's say if you posted 5 static images on your Facebook page this week, I'd rather see you post 2 animated graphics and that's all versus the 5 static images. That's how much more traction you're going to get with these animated graphics versus your static images. Believe me, try it. You're going to say, oh my gosh, Amy, you're totally right. There's no doubt in my mind. So this makes a huge difference. Now, moving on to Facebook Lives. I've talked about Facebook Live on many of my episodes. I plan to do a standalone episode all about it after I've done my upcoming Facebook Live show on my page for, I don't know, I'll do it for a few months every single Thursday. And then I'm going to report back what I've learned, what you can do to make it easier for you, what not to do. I love to report back on stuff like that. So give me a little time because I've never done it super consistently. And that's my new goal. And I have a video studio. Thanks to Michael Hyatt, gave me this great reference. I have a video studio being created in my home office, something I've wanted for a long time, but I just wasn't sure I was going to do enough video. Now I'm certain I've got to do a lot of video. So I'm going to make it a little easier for myself by having a good setup. So I'll report back on the video setup, show you what it looks like. And I will definitely show you what it looks like on Instagram. I don't right now use Facebook stories, but I do use Instagram stories. I just like to, choose what works best for me and where my audience is. And I get a lot of views on my Instagram stories. So if you're not following me there, I'm just Amy Porterfield on Instagram, but I'm going to take you guys for a tour of my new video studio in my home office when it gets set up at the end of May. So now I'm thinking about it. This episode's not airing till June. So maybe I'll post that on Facebook too. That's my deal. I will promise to post it on my Facebook page so that you won't miss it, because obviously on Insta stories, they go away. Okay. So the third time I'm saying this, let's talk about Facebook Live. Facebook is rewarding longer videos. So typically I will do a Facebook Live for at least 30 minutes. I'm a talker. We all know that. And so it's easier for me to go 30 minutes and offer value and answer questions. And I'll probably go beyond 30 minutes. But if you're struggling to get to, let's say 20 minutes or beyond, I want you to think about planning a little bit more in terms of your content. So sit down, open up a Google Doc, plan out your content, think of more examples, more stories, more ways to make your episode entertaining or interesting. If you plan it, you can definitely go for at least 20 minutes, if not more. And then including a Q&A at the end or asking a really good question at the end to get feedback so you can engage with your audience will extend your time as well. But right now, until I tell you differently, Facebook is rewarding longer videos. And that is a great thing because you get to keep your audience's attention longer if you do a good job in that video. The more videos you do, the better you'll get at it. So I thought, well, how can I make this valuable for you right now? I want to talk to you about what to do before a Facebook Live, during a Facebook Live, and after a Facebook Live. I'll just go through it really quickly. So before a Facebook Live, you can now pre-schedule your Facebook Live sessions, and I would highly recommend that. Now, after you pre-schedule it, I would email your list to let them know that you're going live. I would tease your content on other social channels. So I'll get on Insta stories and I'll say, hey guys, I'm going to be live in 1 hour on my Facebook page. So just go to facebook.com/Amy Porterfield and you, my friend, will see me live, I'd love for you to show up, and I've got some great questions I want to ask you, or tell them why they should show up and have them come on over. So you want to tease that you're going to be live across all of your social channels. So tease the content, schedule it, and email your list. Now, during your Facebook Live, what I basically just want to point out is that when you go live, and this is across all social channels, something like this happens, but Facebook is going to notify your fans. And that's a great thing. So it can pop up in different ways on mobile or on desktop that you are live. And of course, you're going to pop up in their newsfeed live as well. So Facebook is definitely helping you get the word out that you are live. So there's nothing really you need to do around this. I just want to encourage you to go live, and Facebook will help you get seen and heard more once you do so. Now, after your Facebook Live, there is something that is really important that you do, and I'll be doing a lot of this, and that is to actually tease your video on social media after the fact. And I have an example in the free PDF that I have for you today of Danielle Walker doing this. Now, Danielle Walker has many, many cookbooks around eating clean. And after she does a Facebook Live, she will take a snippet from that Facebook Live, like a minute of it, and she will post it on Facebook, and she'll post it on Instagram, and she'll say, hey, if you missed it, here's a little snippet, come on over, and it's on my Facebook page. Because the beauty of Facebook Lives is that they live beyond the live moment. And in my world, and so many of my peers have agreed with this, you get tons more views after the fact. Be patient, let the weeks go by, do a good job of teasing it after the fact, and so many more people are going to go and find that video. Now, you want to do a good job after the fact of putting a really good title above the video. So what it is you're teaching. If you have a freebie with it, include a link to that freebie, but you want to tell them why they should watch that video in case they haven't watched it yet and they're just reading the caption above the video. So do a good job, because in my world, I think that the traction I get is after I've gone live. And you have to make sure that you are encouraging people to go check it out even after you are live. So again, in the freebie for today's episode, I'm going to show you how Danielle Walker does this. She does a great job of it. Also, if you feel like it was a really good Facebook Live, you got some good engagement, boost that post after the fact. You can run a Facebook ad to it, or you can just boost it directly from the Facebook Live on your page. But to get a little bit more traction, I highly recommend this. Now, next week in the episode where we talk about pixels and retargeting, I'm going to talk to you about retargeting your video views. So here's something huge, huge, huge. Every time somebody watches your video, whether it be for 3 seconds or all the way through, you can actually retarget that person with a Facebook ad. So if you don't have a big email list, you don't have a huge social media following, but you've been getting some pretty consistent views with your Facebook Lives, whether it was live or after the fact, now you're growing a targeting group for your Facebook ads. All those video views are retargetable, is that a word? With Facebook ads. This is huge, guys. We'll talk about it again next week, but this is another reason why you want to be doing Facebook Lives. Okay. Oh, one more thing. You can add captions to your live video once it's done. Experiment with this. Do one video with live captions, which are like subtitles after the fact, and do another video where you don't add the captions and see if that boosts your views. See if the captions actually help. In many cases, they do. So this is something I want you to experiment with. And then this is beyond Facebook Live, but I wanted to share one more tip before we move into the final rule. And this last tip, again, totally unrelated, so this is going to be weird. I'm switching gears just a little bit, but we're talking about video in general, so I probably should have mentioned this before I got into Facebook Live. When we were researching this episode, I told Lindsay, my community manager, I want to make sure I add a few new things. I talk about these topics a lot with my audience, which is great, but I also want to be adding some new stuff that they might not know. And she said, ooh, this is a good one. You can now add video to your cover photo. Did you know this? Now, you might know this because I'm recording this weeks in advance of this going live. Finally, I'm getting ahead of my batching debacle that I struggle with all the time. But truly, this episode isn't going live for a few weeks. However, at the time of this recording, most people don't know, you can add a video in your Facebook page cover photo. In the freebie, I'm going to show you an example of this. Really, really cool. So there's so many different ways that you can use video, and I just wanted to make sure that you are experimenting with these things. And when I talked about Donna's examples, those are great ways to ease into it. And if nothing else, just changing that up on your Facebook page is going to dramatically change the engagement that you're getting right now. Static images just aren't cutting it. And I am guilty of this too. At the time of this recording, we are still posting static images for my podcast. We're going to change it up. We just got to get all our ducks in a row. So I know it takes time to kind of change it, but in my outro, the conclusion of this episode, I'm going to talk about 3 words that I'm focusing on to speed this up a little bit. 3 words that if I adopt these 3 words as I approach Facebook, I'm going to get this stuff done faster. I'm going to give you those words to see if they might help you as well. So stay tuned because we have one more rule. So new rule number 5, your audience is experiencing your content in micro moments. Act accordingly. This is another one that I actually took from Donna Moritz. Although I had heard this idea of micro moments before, I love how Donna explained it. So I want to give her a shout out. She said, before you create any more content, I want you to understand how savvy your audience is getting. As social media users, we've developed the ability to make a super fast decision on whether we will engage in the content or not. We can filter information faster than ever before. That's this whole idea around micro moments. And so if we are experiencing our content in micro moments, 1-minute videos, quick little GIFs, or in the case of those animated graphics, 30 seconds, you've got the whole story. So because we're experiencing this content in micro moments, how are you going to relate to your audience that way? And so this doesn't necessarily relate back to, let's say, a 20 or 30-minute Facebook Live, but it definitely relates back to those videos that you can ease into that I shared with you from Donna's presentation. Donna said in her presentation, where does your story meet their story? And I think that's another great question to ask when you're thinking about creating your content and putting together these micro moments. Where is your audience right now? And how can your story actually meet their story with where they are right now? And when you think of that question, I thought that was just a beautiful question. Where does your story meet their story? The more you understand your audience, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they need, what they want, and you really pay attention to that, and you create content in animated videos, Facebook Lives, even GIFs, if you're able to create your content in these ways, that's the how you're creating it. You also want to focus on the what. What kind of content are you creating so that your story meets theirs? I think that's such a really important way to look at it. So before we wrap up, I'll review those 5 new rules again. New rule number 1, less post, more quality. New rule number 2, focus more on growing your community, less on how many fans you have on your Facebook page. New rule number 3, advertise more. New rule number 4, more videos, more consistently. And finally, new rule number 5, your audience is experiencing your content in micro moments. Act accordingly. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Okay, so there you have it. I want to leave you with this. In order to genuinely engage with your audience on Facebook, you've got to change the way that you are approaching it. Now, if you're wondering what that looks like, I want to give you 3 words to consider as you approach this ever-changing platform. Number 1, you've got to get nimble. And what that means is you have to be willing to pivot at any given time based on the changes with Facebook, specifically the algorithm. So stay up to date with what the algorithm is doing. Sometimes it's a mystery, I get that, but there's enough information out there to know what's working and what's not working any longer. Number 2, get flexible. If something is not working, try something else. Don't keep doing what you've always done. And number 3, innovate. Change things up, mix things up. Be open to experimenting and testing things out. So nimble, flexible, and innovate. And lastly, we have a really good freebie for this episode. I always love to create freebies where I can show you examples from other people. And so what we've done is we've created a PDF with examples of different types of videos that are working right now that you can model and do in your own business. We took hours scouring Facebook to find the best of the best videos. So this is a really nicely curated freebie that's going to be incredibly valuable for you. All you need to do is go to amyporterfield.com/162 download. So amyporterfield.com/162 download, or you can text the phrase 162 download to the number 33444. Now, next week in episode number 163, I have invited my Facebook ads go-to guy, Rick Mulready, to come back on the show with me. And we are breaking down the Facebook pixel. The pixel. I know it is very confusing to so many people, but we figured out a way to explain it so that it makes perfect sense to you. But really what I want to talk about is retargeting. So we're going to talk about retargeting opportunities in next week's episode, but you can't talk about retargeting without at least having a good conversation of the Facebook pixel. So those topics are on the docket for next week, episode number 163. All right, I cannot wait to connect with you again next week. Make it a great one. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Online Marketing Made Easy podcast at www.amyporterfield.com.